Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the playbook for taking a business global, looking at the strategies that separate the winners from, well, everyone else. So we're going to follow the entire journey a company takes, right? From that first big question, why even bother going global, all the way to dealing with the crazy unpredictable world we live in today.
All right, first things first. Why would any company, take on the massive headache and risk of expanding internationally? What's the real endgame here? You think about these huge brands, Toyota, Apple, McDonald's, and their global operations just seem impossibly complex. But if you strip all of that away, the reason they do it, the core reason, is actually super simple.
And here it is. At the end of the day, it all boils down to one thing: creating more value. A winning global strategy isn't just about sticking flags in new countries. Nope, it's a calculated move to boost value. That means driving up profits right now and making sure you can grow even more in the future.
So, how do they do that? Well, companies basically have two big levers they can pull. They can either figure out how to slash their production costs, or they can make their products so awesome, so desirable, that people are willing to pay way more for them. That gap, between what it costs to make and what you'll pay for it, that's the sweet spot. That's where value is created.
So, how do businesses actually do this abroad? They've got four main tools in their toolbox. First, the obvious one: expand your market. Just sell to more people. Easy, right? Second, they can tap into what are called location economies. This is cool. It's like designing your fancy sunglasses in Italy to get that style credibility, but then making them in China to keep costs down. Third, you've got experience effects. Basically, the more you make something, the better and cheaper you get at it. And finally, and this is a big one, they can transfer skills from their foreign outposts. Think about a brilliant new menu item that McDonald's in France comes up with. They can take that idea and roll it out across the entire globe.
Okay, but it's not all smooth sailing, not by a long shot. Any company that goes global pretty much immediately gets caught in this tug of war between two really powerful opposing forces. And this right here, this is the core dilemma for every global business. On one side, you've got this constant, nagging pressure to cut costs. How do you do that? You standardize everything. You mass produce. But on the other side, you've got the pressure to be locally responsive, to tweak your products, your marketing for different cultures. So what do? Go cheap and universal, or go custom and local? That is the billion-dollar question right there.
And how a company answers that question, how it balances those two pressures, that's what defines its entire international strategy. It's not an accident. It's a very deliberate choice they have to make.
So that core tension we were just talking about, it basically creates four distinct playbooks. You can see it right here in this grid. Depending on whether those pressures for cost and local customization are high or low, a company is going to land in one of these four boxes.
All right, let's quickly run through them. Global standardization is all about being the low-cost leader on a massive scale. Think about a company making a basic microchip that's the same everywhere. Then you have localization, which is the total opposite. This is about customizing everything. A great example is Kraft making all these wild Oreo flavors just for the Chinese market. The international strategy is kind of the default. Just take what works at home and sell it abroad. That works great until a competitor shows up. And then there's the transnational strategy. People call this the Holy Grail. It's trying to do both, be low cost and highly customized. It is incredibly hard to pull off. But if you can do it, you can basically own the market.
Okay, so you've got your grand strategy figured out. Awesome. But now you've got a much more practical question. How do you actually get your foot in the door in a new country? Well, managers have this toolkit with 6 main ways to do it. And they range from the let's just dip our toe in the water, low-risk options like exporting, all the way up to the we're all in, high-risk, high-reward approach of building your own operation from scratch.
And as you can see, there is no one-size-fits-all answer here. It is all about trade-offs. Exporting? Yeah, it's the easiest way to start, but you can get killed by shipping costs and tariffs. Franchising, like McDonald's does, lets you grow super fast with little risk. But what if one bad franchisee in, say, Brazil, messes up and tarnishes your whole brand? A joint venture gives you that amazing local knowledge, but you might have to share your secret technology with your partner. And then there's going all in, owning the whole thing. You get total control, but you also carry all the risk. It's that classic risk versus reward dilemma.
And finally, we have to talk about the real world, because even the most perfect, elegant strategy on paper has to survive out there in a world that is always, always changing.
One of the biggest game changers out there is this idea of regional economic integration. You've got countries teaming up to form these powerful trading blocs, everything from a simple free trade zone like the one between the US, Mexico, and Canada, all the way up to a deeply connected union like the EU. These deals literally rewrite the rulebook for international business.
And for most of the last half century, the direction of travel was pretty clear. Trade barriers were coming down, globalization was the name of the game. And that made it way easier for companies to build these massive, efficient global supply chains. But the world is changing fast. The last few years have seen a massive U-turn. We're talking trade wars, a global pandemic, geopolitical conflicts. All of this has thrown a giant wrench into those global supply chains and forced pretty much every international company to rethink everything. The COVID-19 pandemic, especially, was a huge shock to the system. I mean, it was a massive wake-up call. It really laid bare just how fragile some of these long, globe-spanning supply chains were. It made executives everywhere pause and ask, hey, is it really such a great idea to have our production spread out all over the planet? And that leaves us with one last really important thought. In a world that seems to be in constant flux, the old playbook is being torn up and rewritten as we speak. So maybe the ultimate competitive advantage isn't about picking the right strategy from that grid we saw earlier. Maybe it's just about being able to adapt faster than everybody else.